So just to repeat again, that if you haven't muted your microphone, please mute it now. And I've just started the recording. All right, so I'll just move on to going over the agenda. So today we'll start off with an overview of the Mayor's Resilience Fund and a few introductions, and then we'll introduce the 4 challenges that we're going to be talking about today. And then we'll end with a very long, well, a much longer Q&A session. As I mentioned, we will have Q&A sessions after each session, so you'll have lots and lots of opportunities to ask your questions. So if there aren't any questions about the housekeeping or the agenda, I'm just going to introduce my colleague, Maria Geftar from the Greater London Authority, to kick us off with an overview and a few introductions. Maria?
Thanks, Nastine, and welcome everyone. I'm Maria Geftar. I work on technology innovation and economic development at the Greater London Authority, program managing the Mayor's Resilience Fund. If you wouldn't mind moving on to the next slide, Nastine. So the Mayor's Resilience Fund kind of draws on key recovery and resilience challenges that London is facing. And from September through to December last year, we worked with communities and business associations and other stakeholders to identify and understand urgent priorities London is facing across both recovery and resilience. Through that engagement process, we've identified and selected 10 challenges that were launched last week, and 10 partners that we'll be working with and that innovators will be working with to create new products and services and innovative solutions to address some of those challenges. And we're very proud to present some of those partners today, including Living Wage Foundation and Hackney Councils. Next slide, please, if that's all right. So the Mayor's Resilience Fund has been kind of set up to as a kind of open innovation, open challenge program that draws on the London Resilience Strategy, which was published last year, that identifies key challenges and issues London is facing across lack of social cohesion, housing, transport infrastructure, fair work, and other areas. Through kind of drawing on that, we then engage with stakeholders to understand what are the urgent priorities that London is facing, and how can we support, how can we enable this fund to support London's recovery from. Excuse me, sorry, if you wouldn't mind muting yourself if you haven't already, that would be fantastic. Thank you. So the fund aims to help London communities and businesses to emerge stronger from the current crisis and to improve the city's resilience going forward. And the way we're doing that is through a series of open innovation competitions based around the specific challenges that we've identified over the past couple of months, and inviting innovators and startups to design, test, and scale solutions to those challenges. Next slide, please. So the fund itself brings together organizations such as boroughs and business improvement districts and charities with innovators, be they early stage or fully funded tech startups, engineers or social enterprises, to co-design and work together to create new solutions and products and services to address these challenges. Now, in terms of the benefit to innovators for participating, it offers a route to market and access to potential customers and kind of a sort of a co-design exercise where you can find out more about what London's public and third sector organizations have to offer in terms of commercializing your products and bring your products to market. It also offers up to 50,000 in funding to support you in testing and validating those solutions directly with the markets, with the resilience partners themselves, as well as a program of business support and access to training and kind of expert advice on user design, pitching, business support more broadly, as well as access to a network of other potential customers, not just the resilience partners that you'll be working with, as well as investors. And I'll pass over to Kathy to talk through the timelines.
Great, thanks, Maria. Hi, everyone. My name is Kathy. I lead on our work at Future Cities at Nesta Challenges. Nesta Challenges is a component of the Innovation Foundation, Nesta, based in London, and we're working really closely with Maria and her team at the GLA and the Office of the Mayor to run this challenge. So we're really excited to see you all here today. Thank you for joining us. I will talk through a bit on the timeline and some of the logistics about this before we get into some of the specific challenges. So as you can see here, we launched the open call for innovators for all 10 challenges last week, and we've got just under a month to go. Application deadline is the 1st of April. So what you can see on our website is all the details about how to apply and what we're looking for. I'll walk through that in the next slide or two. But what the process is after applications are submitted in the first couple of weeks of April, we'll be working with an independent panel of assessors and a panel of external judges with expertise in the various topics at hand to review applications and select up to 40 total innovators. That would be up to 4 per challenge, who will be selected for the first phase of the program. And each of those will be awarded £10,000 each to develop out your solution and get to spend, basically it's the month of May, it's from about early May through about early to mid-June. That is delivery phase 1. So those innovators are selected in addition to getting the £10,000 will get to work with the resilience partner who's running the particular challenge that you apply for to learn more about the potential users, to refine, test out your solutions. We'll be providing expert training and support during that time with focus on human-centered design, doing some capacity building and training around pitching, there'll be support for networking, for accessing potential investors, that kind of a thing. So that will be going on for May into early June with those 40 innovators that get through the first round. And then there'll be a second round of assessment in June to choose the winners. There'll be one winner selected for each of the 10 challenges, who will be awarded an additional round of cash up to 40K each, and will have this summer to continue to develop out, implement their solutions in partnership with the resilience partners. So it's quite a short time frame, as you can see. And if you go to the next slide, Naseem, please. I want to talk quickly about what we are looking for. So it's a single application process, and it's a single set of criteria across all 10 challenges. But you'll see when you go to apply that you need to select which challenge you're applying for. You're more than welcome to apply for more than one challenge if you've got different areas of your business and you think you could provoke your interest in finding solutions in more than one challenge. That's perfectly fine, but you need to submit a separate application for each of your ideas. And what we'll be looking across all submittals are these criteria, and you can see that they're weighted, so you get a sense when you're completing your application of what the judges will be looking for. So first and foremost, suitability. Is the proposed solution in scope? Is it aligned with the challenge objectives? Does it meet the kind of things that the resilience partners have marked out that they're trying to achieve? Second, impact. We want to know 2 things in this category. We want to know if your solution will make a difference to the target beneficiaries. But then we also want to know, is what you're proposing something that's scalable? Is it transferable? Could it be adaptable to other contexts? We want to know more about the long-term kind of prospects for your solution. Third, on innovation, we want to know, is this something that expands beyond existing best practice? How is this different or better than what's currently out there in the market? Fourth, feasibility. You'll see there's quite a large weighting placed on feasibility, and there's a couple different things within that the judges will be looking for. They'll be wanting to see if you've got a plausible project plan and capabilities to execute it. We'll want to know a bit about technical feasibility, and this, of course, will vary across the different challenges and the types of things that are being sought. But want to know what the technology is underlying your solution, if relevant. Want to know if it can be delivered within the budget and timescales. And if this has been designed with a clear understanding of end users' needs. And then finally, the fifth criterion that we'll be looking at is capability. Want to know a bit about the team that sits behind your solution. Have you got the track record, the skills, the experience, and what have you thought about in terms of risk mitigation? Next slide, please. And then the last bit is the eligibility criteria. Of course, what I just went through on the previous slide and here too are both all available online. You can go to challenge.org/mayorsresilience. You can also go to tech.london/resilience. We have the same information on both websites, so you can find the information in either place. But a quick word on who's eligible to apply. We're looking for London-based teams. You need to be registered in the UK. Can be a sole trader, but there's certain bits that you need to be aware of that you'll need to include in your application or represent. And we're open to partnerships. It could be a single organization, but if you're applying in partnership, if you've got a teammate or another organization that you're working with, that's totally fine. As I mentioned, excuse me, you can submit an entry for more than one challenge, but you need to do a separate submittal for each one. So be mindful of that. Of course, there's some requirements, given that this money is coming from the Mayor of London's office. So there's certain things that are political or religious in nature that can't be funded, as well as there's some financial requirements around can't support organizations that are going through bankruptcy or other financial challenges at this time. And finally, that last point that I want to mention is that we are encouraging entrants to, where possible, explore how your solution can be open source, open standard, interoperable, or open license. We're keen to hear if you can describe that in your application, what your approach would be to that. That would be really helpful. It's something that's an important element of the program. Nassim, the next slide, please. So the 10 challenges that we'll get into, as I said, all of those logistics are on our website. We're happy to take questions about it, but I'd encourage you to read through some of the details on our website about the application requirements, the eligibility, and that kind of a thing. And there's FAQs on there. What we're hoping to spend time on today is getting into the details of the specific challenges and what we're looking for. So we've broken this into 3 separate webinars. So this morning we'll be hearing about activating high streets, the Affordable Workspace Challenge, the Public Markets Challenge, and the Gig Economy Challenge. If you're interested in others, or if you've got colleagues who might be interested in these other topics, and this afternoon at 2, we'll be doing a similar webinar, but then focusing on the Smart Mobility Challenge, the Air Quality Challenge, and the Renewable Energy Challenge. And then next Tuesday, we've got the other 3, bereavement services, COVID safe travel, and local food. All of these webinars will be recorded too and posted to our website. And with that, I think I'll hand it back to Nassim to start to introduce the 4 specific challenges for this morning.
Thank you, Kathy and Maria. As mentioned, I'm going to start introducing the challenges. So first up, we have activating High Streets Challenge. And I'd like to introduce Sophie Beagle. Sophie, are you there?
Yeah, I am. Great, thank you. So yeah, just to introduce myself, my name is Sophie Beagles. I'm a Principal Regeneration Officer at the London Borough of Ealing, and this is our Activating High Streets Challenge. This challenge is co-owned, so it's submitted on behalf of Ealing Council, West London Business, and then also the Ealing's High Street Task Force, which is a group including representatives from various businesses, traders associations, and business improvement districts across the borough. I think before I go into the kind of individual questions on this slide, I'll just give a bit of brief context, just as a bit of background really. So Ealing is in West London, the 3rd largest London borough and one of the most diverse boroughs in the country. We've got 5 formally designated town centres and then a whole host of high streets and small local parades. And one of the key concerns that's been raised by our task force is around levels of vacant units in some parts of the borough. And really, I mean, that's an issue that we've been grappling with sort of pre-pandemic, but it's something that's likely to be exacerbated and sort of accelerated by the current economic circumstances. And for us, it's a really important topic because the impact of vacant units can have significant impact in terms of sort of wider high street vitality. So those impacts might include reduced footfall, reduced local pride, but also kind of discouraging further investment. And then sort of going into the specifics of the challenge, so I'll just kind of read through some of the information on this slide. But what is the challenge? So essentially, at the moment, we're really lacking a clear and up-to-date picture in terms of vacant properties on our high streets. There are loads of different data sources out there. And what we're looking for is some kind of service which aggregates, cross-references, and then analyzes those different data sources. In terms of the where and the sort of geographical coverage, we'd be looking at all town centres, smaller parades, and high streets across the entire borough. And in terms of end users, there's really multiple end users. So that could be local businesses, it could be the council, business improvement districts, trader associations, and any other organisation with an interest in activating a vacant unit on a high street in the borough. In terms of the impact, we're hoping that by having this tool, we can obviously enable activation of empty spaces and in turn reduce vacancy rates. But we're also thinking about the benefits for those potential occupiers. We'd hope to use some of these spaces to really incubate and support enterprise across the borough. And then in terms of what we can provide as a partner, we'd be looking to offer access to those various different data sources that I referenced at the start. And that includes databases around ownership of different units, as well as the opportunity to start capturing data through our business rates team. So essentially, when a property becomes vacant, the owner will register for empty property business rate relief. And that data is obviously collected, but it's in a spreadsheet format, and we don't currently make use of that, which seems like a big missed opportunity. And then we're also really interested in collating other types of relevant data that might be openly available online. And we'd be looking for suggestions from innovators. One of the things that we've been talking about with the task force is around distinguishing between vacant and available units. So which units are being actively marketed and sort of are available, and then which units are just sitting there empty with no active marketing or kind of intention to activate. And then what does good look like? I mean, I think I've touched on a few elements. Essentially, it's around aggregating data and making that really accessible. We want to get a better understanding of where are these vacant units, who owns them, how long have they been vacant for? And I think mapping that data will be extremely helpful, particularly in terms of identifying any geographical trends, for example. We're also looking for this to be a sort of real-time and up-to-date view of what's happening on the ground. That's something that currently we don't have. And we're also looking to present some really actionable recommendations through this tool. I think we'd work with the selected innovator to kind of shape what those recommendations might be. But essentially, it's about being able to filter data, identify trends, and in turn, inform some strategic actions. So, for example, we might find a certain priority area where there's a real critical need for intervention. We might start identifying trends in terms of ownership. And again, that might lead us down a certain path in terms of intervention. I've probably gone over my 5 minutes, so I'll hand back to Nassine. And yeah, happy to take any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Sophie. If there are any questions, feel free to put them in the chat, or you can just unmute yourself now and ask the question. I can give you just like a few seconds to think about it. But remember that there is, somebody it's unmuted themselves.
Yeah, sorry. Hi. My name's Peter Thompson. I work for a company called Shepper, and this is exactly the service that we currently offer. So I wonder if it would be helpful for Sophie to reach out, because it's already something we're doing across the UK.
Yeah, I think, I've just noticed another one's come up in the chat. I mean, I guess it's going to be a kind of common question that comes up with all of these challenges, is any kind of connections that we can make. I think we are looking for something that's quite, I guess, not bespoke, but very much focused on sort of knitting together lots of different data sources. So for example, across the borough, because we've got business improvement districts, traders associations, and so on, we've got lots of different data sets and different methods for how vacant units are collected. And what we're really looking for is how we can collate those different data sets. So I think that's the kind of gap for us at the moment. I don't know if that really answers your question, but that's the kind of gap that we see at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of something that we're looking into doing. So we sort of both collect the data and then we stitch it together. We've got a BI tool that we use to present the data. So, I mean, it's definitely something we could do. I just, maybe I'll just get in touch offline about it.
Great, thanks.
I've just looked at the question in the chat. It's about eligibility, and I would say that you have to be VAT registered if you're a sole trader. Are there any other questions? Oh, sorry, Maria, you were going to say something?
No, I was just going to say that that's right. Sole traders are eligible to apply, but they must show VAT registration, public liability insurance, or employer's liability insurance, and either audited accounts or a profit and loss statement. If you're able to provide a combination of those, then you can apply and a decision will be made on your eligibility.
Okay, thank you, Maria. If there are no other, there's another question in from Duncan. What format do you want the database to be in? Any idea of the technology? Sophie? Yeah,
so I mean, in terms of the existing databases, it's nothing elaborate. It's Excel spreadsheets, which are obviously have their limits. I think the key for us is having something that's really accessible and visual, and that can be used by lots of different users, because we are looking for it to be used by local businesses and other organizations. So not a kind of software where you have to have a specific license or anything like that. It needs to be something that's really open. But we haven't got any sort of set requirements about exactly what format that might take, as long as it meets the kind of criteria in terms of accessibility. And I think mapping, like I said, would be a key part of that. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a steer.
Okay, I think we'll move on. Remember that there's a Q&A session at the end. So if you do have any more questions about this challenge, you can ask them there. So we'll move on to the Affordable Workspaces challenge, and I will introduce Celine. Celine, are you there?
Hi. Yes, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, well, hi everyone, thanks Nathan. So I'm the developer, I'm Celine, I'm the developer and business engagement manager for Hackney Wick and Fish Island. So I'm employed by the LLDC Hackney and Tower Hamlets and embedded in Hackney's area regeneration team. And I work specifically in the boundaries of Hackney Wick and Fish Island. We're using the boundaries of the Creative Enterprise Zone, which is also across the authorities. So Hackney Wick and Fish Island, for those who don't know it, is located between Hackney, Tower Hamlets and the west of the Olympic Park. It's quite a very industrial place with loads of businesses, and especially a lot of creative businesses, and it's been designated a creative enterprise zone by the Mayor of London a couple of years ago. So the creative enterprise zone is, a response to the regeneration objectives there, alongside protecting workspace, protecting the existing business community. And by protecting, I mean giving them an opportunity to be part of change and occupying new development. Because the scale of regeneration in Hackney Wick and Fish Island is really big. There's around 4,000 homes being delivered. And yeah, it's an area with a lot of character. It's loads of different development plots, loads of different developers with different approaches, different ways of working. And as part of the development, there's a lot of like commercial space being provided exactly for the purpose of, providing an opportunity for local businesses to just like stay in the area. But despite that, there's a lot of space that sits empty in the area. I mean, the main reason is affordability. And so affordability is, or lack in affordability is caused by many things, like, high land values, high rents, and, fit out cost is one part of the problem. So we can't really fix the problem of land values in London with this challenge, but I think fit out cost will resolve, will really help looking at this problem in a new way. So in terms of the solutions, existing solutions to affordable workspace, I think local authorities have, plenty up their sleeves and different ways of delivering them, often using their assets. And I think this is something that's increasingly happening in London and in the country. And it's really good to see, practice changing in local authorities. The problem is this is a lot of private development in Hackney Wick and Fish Island. And I think this challenge for me is a really good opportunity to think, how can, the public sector and, like councils, regeneration teams in particular, influence private development, but outside the planning system, because in terms of timescales, this kind of empty commercial space, unaffordable empty commercial space, is often an issue we come across once it's been developed, so way after planning. So how can we influence what happens? So as part of my job, my role is kind of trying to address that, working very closely with developers to do some like brokerage and try to get, like local businesses inside those spaces. Another opportunity with this challenge is addressing the fact that a lot of private developers on mixed-use residential schemes they're not experts on what the market wants in terms of those units, and therefore they're not keen to invest in fit outs. And often the units are delivered shell and core because I think of this lack of confidence of what not do something that will need to be undone, basically. So I think for me it's a great opportunity to get new insights from innovators, because often I feel that at that stage of the conversations we don't have there's not a lot of opportunity to get breadth of skills and new thinking, fresh thinking. At this stage it's just about more like negotiations, commercial, looking at things type thing, just entering markets. But this challenge will be great for that. And I mean the last thing, the key thing for me around and I think it's what we will provide as a resilience partner is like this is a great opportunity for me. It was to get help in this thinking, but I think I really want to provide like a good opportunity for the innovators. I think the challenge by its nature is quite replicable. I think this problem is not a Hackney Wick and Fish Island problem. It happens in many other areas. I think I'm really looking forward to the co-designing phase and the phase one, in getting feedback from innovators, in also getting prompted to where should we look at. And for me, this is the really like the starting point. I see it possibly as like something that will really help how the industry looks at this issue. And in terms of what what good looks like, I think there's a number of outcomes that we can get out of this challenge fund. But what I'm really hoping is that to onboard developers and have real life, empty units we can look at, and hopefully use this challenge to really kickstart deals, and hopefully, get a few of those units occupied in Hackney Wick and Fish Island, and just start building, success stories in the area. So, I'm excited about this. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, Celine. Does anybody have any questions? You can put them in the chat or just unmute yourself. Rory is asking about the submission requirements. If you're talking about generally like eligibility, we have those on our website. And we went over them earlier, but we can go over them again at the end if you're still curious. But if you're talking about specifically, Celine, do you want to say anything about any specific requirements that you would have?
To be honest, not really. I think like I'm working very closely with my colleague Charlie, who's the creative enterprise manager. So Charlie, if you have anything to say, just jump in. But I think we're thinking about, more a design-led solution, at the beginning of this. But again, as working with Nesta and the GLA in the early stages of refining the challenge, we understand this is very much about allowing space for innovation. So I don't.
Oh, Kathy, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I would just say in response to Rory's question too about submission requirements, if you're curious about the application and what the application form looks like, there's a PDF of the application form on our website. I believe the platform works in such a way that once you start your application, you can't save it and come back to it. But there's a link when you are ready to submit. There's a link to it's an online application process. But if you want to start working on your application ahead of time and understand everything you're going to need, there's a PDF. So I'll find that link and I'll drop it in the chat.
Yeah, and so the rest of the questions is about, is it a written drawn submission? I mean, I think it's written. I've had a very quick look at the application form, and there's like word limits as well. I don't expect any. I mean, I know how onerous it is for design teams to do designs as part of like bidding process. So I hope that answers Rory's question. I'm not expecting to see any design unless there's room for attachments and you have off the shelf you're in a design way able to communicate very clearly what are the new ideas that you're bringing. In terms of the previous question, Mark's question, if particular pilot places have been identified and can be used to develop design-led templates. So I am in the process of identifying, I have identified the spaces. I'm speaking to developers to know whether, gauge their appetite to be part of this challenge, because I think we should work that way. But I think this is something I would bring to the table in the first phase, of delivery.
There's also a question from Duncan. Is the only intervention you're putting forward to do with fit out costs? What led you to identify those?
It's not just about identify. To give a real life example, it's not just about cost. Design and cost. Maybe it is. No, but what led me to identify those is conversations with a developer and various colleagues saying that shell and core is not attractive to the market at the moment, and we talking about stuff like what type of shop window of ground floor unit windows you put on, because when you don't know what occupier is going to come in, it's very hard, because if it's an office, normal curtain wall glazing is fine. If it's a restaurant, especially with the new Class E coming in for us and even more flexibility in what we can put in those commercial units, you will want something that opens onto the street. And it just felt that a lot of those conversations were very circular around, you need to fit out more, you need to think about what end user you want in, but it's very hard to design. So, I mean, that's basically, that was a really big challenge, which, that's why we put it out there. So maybe cost, isn't the only response to that. I mean, I'm not sure I'm fully answer the questions. I feel like I'm putting more questions, but this is something I've been spending a lot of time over the past few months thinking about, and I don't necessarily have an answer to all this stuff on exactly what I want, and that's why I think this challenge is great.
Can I jump in on that, just from a care's point of view? So, because there is quite a lot of commercial space that does sit empty, and it's brand spanking new and it's there, and sometimes developers are kind of warm to the idea of activating it, but then you have, say, a small startup business or a community group that wants to go in and use the space, and it's just shell and core. Like there's a limited amount you can do with it in that state. There is some kind of fit out needed, but obviously the potential occupier that you'd want to give that meanwhile use to doesn't have capital to do that. And even if they did, it would be very, very short term, because it's probably going to be for an interim period. So it's not worth the developer fitting it out either. So I think what we're looking for is, in my mind, something quite flexible that could allow kind of more smaller businesses, community businesses, people with low budgets to come in and use that space ahead of, say, a lead tenant coming in and spending the full whack on getting it into use. That's my view on it. But again, I think, does that sound about right?
Yeah.
There's a question from Anna, but I think we'll move on to the next challenge, if that's okay with you, Anna. And we'll come back to that question at the end. I've just noted it down. Okay. And there's also a question from Mark and Todd, but we'll come back to those at the end. So I'll move on now to the public markets challenge, and I'll introduce Daniel from the local market authority team. Daniel, are you there?
Yep. Morning, everybody. My name's Dan O'Sullivan. I'm the service area head for market, shop fronts and street trading in Hackney, and I'm kind of heading up a team of a number of different local authorities and the GLA in regards to this project. The challenge in itself is we're looking for a scalable and transferable digital service or solution that provides a twofold. So firstly, providing a single gateway for traders, both existing and new, to have a one-click licensing application to multiple London boroughs, and secondly, for those said traders to be able to access opportunities right across all of London's public markets, so making it simpler and easier to not just register across those boroughs, but also then either expand their existing business or start their existing business in multiple places. The control group team is headed up by my team, but we are working closely with Camden, Tower Hamlets, the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea. We've also brought on board Southwark, and we're also working with the Traders Association group that operate out of Brixton Market. So we've got quite a varied control group across London. The key focus for our end users essentially is the local authority street market teams, existing and new traders and entrepreneurs who would like to trial a business idea or start up their business. The impact that we're looking for across this, as I referred to earlier, is a simple, effective and easy registration process and the ability to move swiftly between markets in the pilot boroughs. Currently, every single borough, whilst majority of us operate under the same legislation and we all ask the same documentation, we each have a rather elongated process, and this is a way of kind of bypassing that and simplifying that and making trading opportunities much more accessible. And with that in mind, we'd be seeking for this platform also to almost become a digital catalogue of London's markets and available pitches. So looking, if you think more like a digital image some blurb around the actual market and the trading opportunity, and then some specific detail around the cost of the pitch and how many pitches, in which the existing or new traders can literally select a number in one go, and with one hit all of their uploaded documentation will go to each of those individual boroughs, and within a matter of days you potentially can have your business operating across multiple facets of London. So this will also then reduce a key barrier to new traders, which is a very time laboured process, and also harness the broader value of our markets and high streets, which are going to be key to the economic recovery, particularly as we head into April 12th and the next stage of the roadmap. So resilience partners, what will they provide? So we're looking for capacity. We've got a consortium of pilot boroughs that has grown, and they are relevant experts in different aspects and different fields within this industry, and all have access to the existing systems. So you've got staff time. So on top of these experts, our L&D teams across Tower Hamlets, Camden, my team in Hackney, and the manager over at Kensington and Chelsea, and the Brixton Market Traders Federation will all be heavily involved in trialling, shaping, working with, and helping innovators navigate the nuances of the many different pieces of legislation in which we operate under. And obviously access to market traders. We've already built in a line to speak directly to service users to kind of get their feedback and how they understand the process, so we can help shape, you know, the right side of the customer facing aspect of it. And ultimately, what does good look like? For me, it's a digitized service that is a single gateway for people to, with one click of a button, apply to trade in multiple London boroughs specific to the market and the exact pitches, and within a week can actually be operating their business in multiple locations, which will, given the impact the pandemic has had on public local authority markets and small businesses, which will open up a wealth of opportunity to really stimulate local economies and local employment. And there you go, I've kept within my 5 minutes. I could take some questions.
Yes, so if there are any questions, as usual, you can put them in the chat or unmute yourself.
I've got a question, Daniel.
Yep. Hi, Darren.
Hi, it's Darren from Street Dots. We're an online booking platform for street trading across London. Quick couple of sequential questions. I'm not sure if you know the answer to the first one, but are you able to upload videos or PDFs as part of the application? And the second part of the question is, do you have a little bit of an overview of what post-summer may look like and what potentially the uptake with other boroughs might be?
Yep, so all of the boroughs in the control group have the facility to accept PDFs. The video question is an interesting one. I know we do, but I'll need to go back to the control group.
Sorry to interrupt you, Daniel. Just to say that when it comes to submitting your submission on the GLA's OPS system, which is what we'll be using, you'll need to go online, register. We have guidance on how to use that system on our website that you can go through. And then you'll fill out the application there. I don't think there won't be any videos that we'll be accepting at this stage. Sorry, Kathy, did you have anything extra to add?
Yeah, just to echo that, Nassim, just for fairness across all of the challenges, we're using the one single application platform, and that's what the assessors and the judges will be reviewing the applications that come in. And so at this stage, the application will only be assessing what comes in on the application form. So unfortunately, we won't be able to view any videos or PDF attachments or links to additional information. For fairness, we just need everyone to respond to the application form. That's all.
Yeah, thank you, Kathy. So Daniel, back to you for the second part of the question.
For the second part of the question, what does the summer look like? Look, that's going to be heavily dependent on the 5-week reviews in between all the different parts of the roadmap. I know in my conversations with government ministers and other kind of leading industry bodies, there's a lot of confidence in regards to the measures that are already in place. April the 12th, I know within the majority of the London boroughs in the control group, we're going to see a much wider reopening of all of the street markets. That will ease even more as you come into seeing the return of hospitality being able to operate indoor from the 17th of May, which will release some of the pressure that you're seeing on outdoor space through the pavement licenses under the Business and Planning Act, and the kind of hunger for the use of public highway and al fresco dining. I think that will settle down as you come into May, and then obviously the key date is the one in June, when there is the review in mid to late June of the current COVID secure measures. I know a lot of the capacity caps go, I believe, on the 21st of June, and then there's a government review in regards to the rest of the social distancing measures, and it will be that outcome of that conversations that sees just how fast or how wide markets can reopen, not just in London but across the UK, to maximise the kind of July, August, September summer period.
Great, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Well, if anybody thinks of any more questions, we have the Q&A at the end. So I'm just going to move on to the gig economy challenge, and I'm going to introduce Tahera. Sorry, I hope I pronounced that correctly. Tahera, are you there?
Yeah, thank you, Naseen. Hi, everyone. My name's Tahera. I'm Head of Business Development at the Living Wage Foundation. So I'll kick off with just a bit of context about the gig economy, and then I'll hand over to my colleague Graham to talk about the challenge specifically and what that means for us at the foundation. So our challenge really is about creating a digital service for gig economy workers that provides clarity and an ease of understanding about what their take-home pay is, and then allowing us to decipher whether they're earning the London living wage. We know that in the UK that there are currently almost 4.7 million gig economy workers, and that's continuing to grow, with 24% working in London. And as platforms like Uber and Deliveroo grow and grow, that number is going to continue to increase quite exponentially. In 2018, a study found that over 700,000 gig economy workers were paid below the minimum wage, and the Resolution Foundation found that 49% of self-employed workers were low paid. Broadly, it's really worth noting that the desire to get a clear and accurate picture of the gig economy and how workers are paid has been really hard over the last few years because of a lack of transparency around pay and rights as that industry grows. And we know that operating within the gig economy, people are treated very differently to regular employers. There's no independence or flexibility. You don't get offered all the regular rights like sick pay, etc. And all of this puts pressure on living standards and has contributed to a rise of poverty for people living in London as well. And over the last year, we know that the impact of the pandemic has acutely impacted those working within the sector. Many of these individuals we know have been at the front line, carrying this country through that. But a lot of them have been shut out from accessing support. They're not able to be part of the furlough scheme. And a key stat from St Mungo's last year was warning us that many workers were being pushed to the brink of homelessness. So the issue is, growing worse and worse. I'll hand over to Graham now to go into details about our challenge.
Thanks, Tahera. Hi, I'm Graham. I'm the Assistant Director at the Living Wage Foundation, and I oversee the accreditation of living wage employers. And whilst we have almost accredited 7,500 living wage employers, with over 2,000 of those headquartered in London, there are still very few gig economy employers that have engaged. In terms of our accreditation criteria, we treat self-employed workers the same as outsourced contracted staff. So if they're providing regular hours, we expect them to be paying the living wage. But we know that that doesn't really work for gig economy employers, because the associated expenditure with delivering the service reduces that take-home pay and can take wages below the minimum wage. And it's actually the exemption of self-employed workers from that minimum wage legislation, which makes it far more challenging to monitor, with no obligation from gig economy employers to be kind of thinking about what the actual hourly pay is. And I think that's especially the case when the expenses can vary platform to platform, worker to worker, things like whether you need a vehicle, what type of vehicle, insurance, uniforms, whether there's petrol or not, you know, sort of there's lots of different factors that go into this. We've had lots of conversations with gig economy employers about accreditation. Like, some of them will publicly claim to be paying more than the living wage, but their inability to calculate their hourly wages, combined with our inability to provide kind of really clear guidance on expectations, has been the barrier for us to support millions of gig economy workers in the same way that we have been able to influence through our living wage accreditation. So this challenge is all about tackling that, creating a tool, a dashboard for workers to calculate their hourly pay. And we hope that that will give workers more agency and transparency over their work. It will give the Living Wage Foundation more data to provide clear guidance to gig economy employers. And it will remove the barrier for gig economy employers to engage with the living wage in a meaningful way, meaning that hopefully we can secure pay rises for low paid workers.
Thank you both. Are there any questions on this one? As usual, feel free to unmute yourself at this point. Well, I guess we can move on to the any other questions section. So we had a few kind of leftover questions from earlier that I think we should address first. So first up was Anna to Celine. You have said that mixed use developers don't know about what the market wants. Which tools or processes do you recommend to go through this? Celine?
Yeah, okay. So yeah, basically, I've done a lot of engagement with, usually when we said local market in Hackney Wick and Fish Island, we mean Hackney Wick and Fish Island, because the priority is really looking at, is really local businesses. But so I've been doing a lot of engagement with workspace providers and businesses in the area. Being part of this challenge is prompting me to formalize the findings of this engagement a little bit quicker, so I'm able to give all that intel, to the shortlisted innovators. But yeah, the tools about wanting what the market wants is very much engagement. I think another thing that I think is worth mentioning is in understanding what the market, I mean, the commercial market, because developers know really well what the residential market wants, but with the commercial community organization space, that like this type of space, like active space, there's also information that can be found in, the market, the marketing reports that are produced by commercial agents, locally. But that's another interesting thing I've noticed in the few months I've been in this role is, as well as there's a little bit of a knowledge gap around commercial market that developers try to address by engaging more traditional commercial estate agents. Kind of what I'm looking and what I'm trying to do is kind of complementary to that level of skills and knowledge. So yeah. I guess engaging with me and maybe yes, some additional people, but that's something I'm also trying to resolve into, in my role, knowing what the market wants. I hope that's helpful. Then if you want, like I noticed the next question was around business rates by Mark. I mean, I basically picked up a couple of questions, so I can answer to them in a row and then just, leave it.
That'd be great.
Great. Okay. So Mark's question about the business rates, have formal business rates evaluation on this space has been determined and who would be liable? I do not know whether they've been valued yet, but it's a very good question because now I can ask developers I'm onboarding for this project. about the liability on business rates. I think there's, depending on what a landlord's approach to managing their commercial space is, there's two ways of doing it. Either you ask your tenants to pay it, or you pay it and you just reflect that in the price. And I think, again, to illustrate the challenge, when I ask those questions to developers is, you know, when the spaces are almost being built and they're almost ready to be handed over, they haven't thought about this question. I mean, some have, some haven't. So this is really good insight. And yeah, Charlie, yes, this is very good point. So Charlie put in the chat, we are working we have a community development trust in Hackney Wick and Fish Island, and we really would encourage people to speak to them to have a really good understanding of the local issues. And Charlie's put it contact details in the chat. So on business rates, I hope that addressed the question. Later, one comment I wanted to make on what Duncan said around, meanwhile, is meanwhile, as you know, delivery model, kind of like an end goal, is one aspect of affordable workspace delivery. At the moment, the model I'm trying to, you know, like not push, but like that I think works the best is like to have long leases using an intermediary workspace provider that has experience of providing affordable workspace and providing space with cheap rents for the end user. And the only way to broker a deal between a developer and a workspace provider and make it affordable to the end user when a developer may be expecting higher prices is to have a long-term model. So I just wanted to say that around meanwhile, and the kind of timescales we're thinking about. We're thinking about both. I mean, again, I think this is probably something that can be refined in the co-designing stage. And just one thing that I reread the previous question, it was also Duncan, around fit out costs. I think what would be really interesting is also for us to get insight on size and how you convert, how you subdivide. This is a big thing in the challenge we're trying to resolve, subdividing space, the size of space. And it probably also ties in with like market insight and what does the market want. So yeah, just wanted to add these thoughts.
Okay. Thank you, Celine. We have a question from Paul, and then we'll move on to the question from Marcel. But before we do, I just want to highlight that there have been a few questions about the entry and the application, and that Kathy shared some very useful links in the chat. And Maria also mentioned the OPS system that we'll be using, and you can find more guidance on that online. So for the question from Paul, I would like to direct it to either Kathy or Maria. I don't know if either of you have an answer.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in, and then Maria, please do add as well. But Paul's question, in case everyone can't see it, is what should we aim to achieve during the first challenge period? Some of these are big projects. How much do you expect to be achieved in the initial competition period? And yes, we recognize that there's 10 different challenges, varying stages of development that needs to take place to achieve these challenges. And so it is, we don't have the exact same expectations for each one. We know that this first phase, say if you're in that first development phase that's working from early mid-May to early to mid-June, that for instance, on the Workspace challenge, we're not looking for actual like built infrastructure, I don't think, during that time. If you look on our website for each of the challenges, it says we have list out kind of what does good look like in the short term and the long term. So there's some things that we're looking to achieve in the short term. And for many of these, in that first initial phase in May, we're looking more at what your plans are and how you're starting to put them into action. Maybe if it's something that's more of a software development challenge, if you've got a database, a prototype of your database built, a prototype of an app or something like that, I mean, that might be reasonable to be testing and developing in that first phase. One of our other challenges that we're not talking about today is, the renewable energy challenge on the DACT. We're not really expecting to see large scale projects being built in that stage. So I'd encourage you to take a look at that. What does good look like section for each challenge, and describe to us in your application what phase of development you think is achievable in the short term, and then what that would lead to longer term. Maria, you might want to add more.
I think that pretty much covers it, to be honest. There are sections on what good looks like, and a lot that can be gleaned from the challenge narrative about what would be looking to prototype during phase one. However, that, sort of should you be successful, that will be scoped out in more detail together with your resilience partner in terms of what your deliverables and objectives will look like over those few weeks during phase one that you'll be working together. So an indication of what you hope to achieve and what you think is feasible would be helpful in your application, but that is to be scoped out further once we start.
Okay, thank you both. Celine, I have another question for you from Marcel about understanding the Workspace challenge. Are you able to answer that?
Yes, I mean, I think it links very much with what Kathy and Maria were saying. Marcel is asking whether we expect, within budget to meet any of the capital costs for fit out. No, not really. I mean, I think we know, and I mean, in this kind of phase one delivery, we can scope out what's achievable. So if there is some of the capital costs that can be met, great, but I don't think it's an expectation at this stage, because capital costs, some of the units are big, and we know it's in the hundreds of thousands. And I think, and again, I think something that's quite useful, any insight on how what is going to be designed will be sellable and attractive to either whoever would be responsible to bearing the capital costs, being the end user, an intermediary developer, would be, it would be interesting conversations to be had. But I appreciate this challenge is surrounded by bigger conversations.
Thank you. Another question from Marcel just came in. Celine, I'm guessing that's to you as well.
Oh, no, sorry. No, I think it's for you guys. Like, it's about the eligibility requirement. Does all the partnering organizations need to be in London?
Yes, they do all need to be London-based. Oh, Maria, you're going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say that, ideally for everyone, for all the partners involved to be London-based, but if you have sort of a base elsewhere, but also in London, that isn't an issue. It's just that in terms of funding, those are our borders, Greater London. So yes.
Are there any other questions from anybody? I'll give everybody maybe like a minute or so to think of anything if it comes up. But just to say that you can find more information on our website, which you should see on the screen. And if you have any questions, you can write to the email address that's also on the screen. I have your email addresses from everybody who's registered, so I can share the website and email address again by email after this. Did somebody unmute themselves? Oh, I was just imagining it. Okay, I think if there are no more questions, or if none of the other presenters today have anything to add, I feel like we can end it here. Thank you all so much for attending. Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks very much. That was great.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.